Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're embarking on what feels like a pretty high-stakes mission, actually.
Hmm.
We're aiming to master let's call it the linguistic architecture of advanced English.
Yeah. And this isn't just, flipping through a dictionary casually.
No, not at all.
We're looking at a specific set of C2 level words, maybe around 50 really powerful terms. Think of them as an intellectual toolkit.
Exactly. A toolkit, or maybe even a shortcut, to get real clarity and analytical power.
It's really about cognitive efficiency, isn't it? You know that feeling. When you've got a complex idea, something really nuanced,
Right.
maybe you're dissecting global policy or trying to phrase a new scientific hypothesis or even just writing a sharp executive summary.
And the words you have just feel like,
Yeah.
thin,
Yeah.
or maybe just sort of
It's adequate.
just adequate. Exactly. And this deep dive, that's what it's designed for, to get rid of that feeling.
We want to push past adequate. These single words, these precise terms, they pack in so much meaning.
They really do. They let you bypass those long, sometimes clumsy descriptions and jump straight to a much more professional, authoritative level of communication. We really want you, listening in, to feel intellectually ready for those high-level conversations.
And we've tried to structure this to help with that. We've grouped things thematically, hoping it helps with retention and actually using these words.
Makes sense.
So first, we'll dig into the language of change and action, the words you use when things really shift.
Okay.
Then we'll move inward a bit, looking at vocabulary for describing subjective things, feelings, states, the feel of a place.
Right. The internal stuff.
And finally, the biggest chunk will really equip you with the specialized words you need for, well, rigorous critical analysis and high-stakes arguments.
Okay, let's get into it then. Part one, the language of change and action. So these are the words for when policies change, resources get moved around, systems get tweaked.
Mm-hmm.
And we're starting with two ways to say stop, but wow, the implications are miles apart. Abolish versus cease.
Yes, this is where that C2 level really shows its value. When an institution, maybe a government, decides to end something, the verb choice is critical. It defines the scale, the permanence.
So, abolish. That sounds heavy. Final.
It is. Abolish implies finality. It's
Right.
formal. It's definitive. Usually used for ending an old system, a practice, a law. It's got weight.
Institutional weight, legal weight, often too.
Right.
Like if you read a headline saying a country has abolished some outdated environmental law.
You get it immediately. The intention is permanent removal.
Yeah.
That law is off the books, legally gone.
That's absolute.
Right. But then you've got cease. Now, cease also means stop, halt, discontinue.
Yeah.
But it often feels, well, more conditional, maybe
Yeah.
temporary.
That's permanent.
Often, yeah. Or maybe it's self-imposed rather than this big institutional mandate. Think about that example. All construction must cease during heavy rainfall.
Okay, the rain stops, construction starts again.
Exactly. The construction stops, yes, but the whole project isn't wiped off the map. It's a pause, a stop that depends on outside factors.
I see the difference now. So if a company says ceases trading, they might be finished financially, but the legal structure for that type of company probably still exists.
Right.
But if the government abolishes the entire regulatory body that oversaw that industry, well, that's a much deeper, more fundamental change.
Precisely. And, this distinction is often used deliberately in political language. It's something you should watch out for. Why might a politician say an unpopular program will cease operations instead of being abolished?
Ah, clever. To maybe soften the blow, reduce opposition. If they say cease, it kind of leaves the door slightly open, doesn't it? It implies, well, maybe if things change or a different party gets in, it could come back.
Exactly. It avoids the finality, the political heat of saying this is gone forever.
Right. Abolish slams the door shut and locks it. Cease just pulls it too. That choice signals the intended permanence and maybe the political risk involved.
You've got it. Okay, so moving from ending things to, let's say, making strategic improvements. We have allocate and augment. People sometimes mix these up, but they handle really distinct actions, especially with resources.
Allocate sounds like sharing out.
That's a good way to think of it. Allocate is the language of careful division. It's about distributing, assigning, maybe apportioning things that are limited resources, funds, time.
The focus is on that careful splitting up and strategic placement. Like funds were allocated to improve rural infrastructure. That money goes to infrastructure. It can't simultaneously go somewhere else. It's a deliberate choice.
It's a controlled, measured assignment. And ideally, if that allocation is done well, The group or project that gets the resources should then be able to augment its capabilities.
Okay. So augment is the result.
Often it's the intended result.
Yeah.
Augment means to boost something, enhance it, expand it by adding to what's already there. It's about increasing capacity or quality.
So the council allocates the money, and then the successful spending of that money augments the quality of the roads, perhaps.
Perfect example. Or think individually. Reading academic journals augments your vocabulary range. You're adding to your existing word bank, making it bigger and better.
Okay, so the key difference. Allocate is about the distribution, the giving out. Augment is about the growth, the expansion that hopefully follows.
Precisely. But here's a really interesting point our sources raised. There's a note of caution. We allocate things hoping for controlled improvement, right?
Yeah.
But augmentation itself, that growth, it needs to be managed. Uncontrolled growth.
Right.
That can actually be harmful.
Really? Like too much of a good thing.
Absolutely. Think about rapid expansion anywhere. Biology, economics, tech. A really good example comes from data science. You can augment a data set, add more examples to train a machine learning model.
Which sounds good. More data's better.
Usually.
Right.
But if you augment it carelessly, maybe just duplicating things or adding noisy data without proper checks, you can cause something called overfitting.
Overfitting, meaning?
Okay? Meaning the model learns the training data too well. It learns the noise, the quirks, the specific examples, and then it can't generalize. It performs poorly when it sees new real-world data it hasn't seen before.
Wow. So the system got augmented so much that its actual ability to do its job got worse.
Exactly. Its core function is diminished. It highlights that even growth, even positive augmentation, needs critical oversight and sometimes correction.
Which kind of leads naturally to the idea of making adjustments, right?
Yeah.
If augmentation goes a bit wrong.
It does, and that's where we might use the term alteration. If augmentation is the big push to boost capacity, alteration is more like the fine-tuning, the surgical adjustment we make to correct course before things get out of hand.
Okay, so that connects them. An organization might allocate funds, which leads to needed augmentation of services.
Yeah.
But if that growth isn't quite right, like that AI model, they have to make careful alterations to fix it.
Exactly. And it's important to note that even small alterations, especially to formal things like a research paper, a policy doc, a legal contract, they need solid justification.
Right. You can't just change a sentence in a signed contract without explaining why.
Precisely. The change might seem minor, just an alteration of a paragraph, but the reason why you're changing it needs to be absolutely clear and agreed upon.
Okay, this is great. We've gone from huge final changes, like abolish, through strategic distribution with allocate, and ended up at careful justified tweaks with alteration. That gives us a good handle on the language for external actions. But what about getting that same level of precision when we're talking about things that are more internal or subjective?
Good question. Let's move into part 2 then, assessing subjective qualities.
Okay.
We often just fall back on simple words here, don't we? It looks good or it feels nice. We need better tools.
Definitely. We need words that capture both the sensory side and maybe the intellectual reaction at the same time, like aesthetic versus ambience.
Exactly. Aesthetic. This focuses on beauty, artistic value, the visual quality, yes, but also function and form sometimes. It describes a quality that's inherently pleasing, often judged against certain principles of design or taste.
Like the example given. The museum design was both functional and aesthetic.
Perfect. It speaks to the building itself, the lines, the materials, the light. It's a quality that's visually present, something you can point to.
Okay, so if aesthetic is the look, is ambience the feel?
That's a great way to put it. Ambience is the overall atmosphere, the setting, the mood that's created. It's the total effect, often intangible, of the environment on the person who's in it.
Wait a minute. Can you have something with a great aesthetic but a terrible ambience? They sound like they should match up, but I'm thinking,
Yeah.
maybe not always.
Oh, they absolutely can clash. And spotting that difference is key for sharp description. Imagine, say, a really striking modern building, maybe brutalist architecture.
Okay, lots of concrete, sharp angles.
Right. The aesthetic, the raw concrete, the bold geometry, maybe the sheer scale could be architecturally fascinating, maybe even beautiful in its own stark way. But if the ceilings feel oppressively low, the corridors echo like crazy, and there's a constant loud hum from the ventilation.
And the ambience is awful.
Yeah.
Cold, sterile, maybe even stressful.
Exactly. The design itself, the aesthetic, might be technically impressive, but the overall sensory experience, the ambience, completely ruins it for the people inside.
That makes total sense. So when we say the restaurant's calm ambience created a relaxing experience, it's about the whole package.
It is. The look, sure, but also the lighting, the sound level, the temperature, maybe even the service style. They all work together to create that feeling, that ambience.
It's like judging the painting versus judging the whole feeling of the gallery room where the painting hangs.
That's a nice analogy. Well,
Okay, let's turn that precision inward now. Talking about feelings, internal pressure. We need to separate general worry from that very specific type of concern captured by apprehensive.
yes, apprehensive is quite specific. It's not just being generally nervous or anxious. It means uneasy, concerned, maybe a bit fearful. But the key thing is it's almost always forward-looking. It's predictive. It focuses on a specific future event.
So it has a target.
Exactly. It's anxiety with a specific target.
So if I'm just vaguely worried about life, that's maybe anxiety. But if I'm specifically nervous about, say, a big presentation next week.
That's apprehension.
Okay.
The example, many candidates feel apprehensive before speaking tests, captures it perfectly. The feeling is directed towards something coming up, something specific they have to face. It's often performance-related, future-focused worry.
And often that kind of apprehension links up with some external weight or strain we feel, right? Something we have to carry.
It often does, and that external pressure, that weight, is really well defined by the word burden.
Burden.
Burden defines that external pressure as a strain, a weight, a stress. It's like something heavy being carried, and often the implication is that it's unfair or systemic.
Like the example, rising costs are a burden for low-income families.
Precisely. That phrasing shifts the focus. It's not just about individual worry. It points to the systemic weight placed on them by external factors.
That's interesting, though. Does using burden like that, focusing on the systemic side, does it risk kind of blurring responsibility?
Yeah.
Could it sometimes seem like it absolves individual action completely or maybe oversimplifies things?
That's a really sharp question, actually. And yes, that's a potential risk and something advanced speakers need to be aware of. Using burden is a powerful rhetorical move because it deliberately assigns the weight externally.
So it's a choice.
It's definitely a choice. If you wanted to talk about a difficulty more neutrally, you might just say challenge or difficulty. But if you choose burden, you're actively signaling that you see the weight as excessive, heavy, and quite possibly unjust.
So using burden isn't just describing the situation, it's also making an argument about where the responsibility for that strain lies.
You've nailed it, yes. And thinking about assessing that pressure, that weight, leads us straight into our final section, and it's the most detailed one. The vocabulary for formal assessment and critical argumentation.
Okay, the intellectual rigor toolkit.
Exactly. Let's start with the absolute foundation of any judgment.
Assess.
Assess. To assess something is to judge it, estimate it, maybe appraise it, but always against specific criteria. It's not a gut feeling. It involves weighing evidence, critical appraisal, usually based on some predetermined standards or framework.
Right. Like in high-stakes situations you mentioned, actuaries assess risk, financial analysts assess a company's value.
And crucially for many listeners, language examiners assess your writing or speaking against very specific band descriptors.
It's systematic evaluation, not just a casual opinion. Okay, so once you've assessed something, you usually want to make a claim about it, right?
Yeah.
Either confirm something or maybe just strengthen an idea. Which brings us to affirm versus bolster.
Yes, and these get confused with the general word support, but they signal very different levels of strength. To affirm something is to assert it, confirm it, declare it true with real confidence. It implies you've reached a conclusion, maybe even certainty.
Like in science or statistics.
Exactly. You might affirm a hypothesis because your data reached statistical significance. It's a strong, definitive statement. You're saying, the evidence shows this is true.
It's conclusive.
Pretty much. Now, contrast that with bolster. To bolster an idea is to boost it, reinforce it, uphold it. It's the language you use for strategic support. It makes an argument stronger, harder to attack, but crucially, maybe the evidence isn't quite enough for a full, confident affirmation.
Okay, let me try an analogy. Like in a courtroom, maybe definitive DNA evidence affirms the suspect was at the scene.
Yes, that's affirmation territory, conclusive.
But maybe the testimony of 5 witnesses who saw someone like the suspect nearby. That doesn't absolutely prove it was him, but it bolsters the prosecution's overall argument that he could have been there.
That's a perfect illustration. The witness testimony adds weight, it reinforces the possibility, it bolsters the case, but it doesn't affirm guilt on its own.
Got it. And knowing that difference is crucial for sounding professional, right? You show you're careful with evidence.
Absolutely. It shows intellectual rigor. If you
Yeah.
only have the bolstering evidence, you have to use bolster. If you jump to affirm, you're overstating your case, and that actually hurts your credibility.
Okay, so you've assessed, you've carefully chosen whether to affirm or bolster your claim. Now you have to look at the argument itself. Is it any good?
Right, because a brilliant idea can still fall flat if it's not structured properly. Which brings us to coherent and cohesion,
Yeah.
two C's that are vital.
Coherent and cohesion. Okay.
This pairing is so important, especially for advanced writing or presentations. An argument or an idea is coherent if it's consistent, logical, and rational. It's about the overall intellectual flow. Does the whole thing hang together? Does it make sense as a complete thought?
So coherence is about the brain of the argument, the fundamental logic.
That's a good way to think of it. The overall sense, the core logic. Then you have cohesion.
And cohesion is?
Cohesion is more technical. It's the glue. It's the unity, the links, the consistency between the different parts, between sentences, between paragraphs, between sections of a report. It's what makes it flow smoothly on a micro level.
How does it do that?
Often through things like transition words. However, furthermore, in contrast, clear pronoun referencing, so it clearly refers back to something, consistent terminology. It's the mechanics of connection.
Okay, let's use a scenario. Say you're pitching a complex business strategy to the board.
Okay, high stakes.
If the underlying strategy itself, the basic logic, the risk assessment, if that's flawed, it lacks coherence.
Right. And the board will probably reject the whole idea fundamentally. They don't buy the premise. It's intellectually unsound.
But what if the strategy is actually brilliant, totally logical, coherent?
Mhm.
But your presentation is a mess. You jump around, use terms inconsistently, the slides don't link up.
Then it lacks cohesion. The core idea might be good, but the delivery fails. The board might get confused, lose the thread, maybe even just tune out. They might conceptually agree, but think the execution plan is incompetent because the presentation was so disjointed.
I see. So coherence failure is a failure of the core concept. Cohesion failure is a failure in executing the delivery, the connections.
Exactly, and you absolutely need both for maximum impact. You need a coherent argument delivered with strong cohesion.
Makes perfect sense.
Okay.
Now, what if, during that high-level assessment, things just don't add up? What if your data directly clashes with the accepted theory? Or maybe two parts of your own findings seem to point in opposite directions?
Then you need the right word and maybe the courage to use contradict.
Contradict. It sounds strong.
It is. To contradict is to oppose, deny, or refute directly. It signals a fundamental mismatch, a clash between claims or data points. You use it when the conflict is clear and significant.
Like, his statement completely contradicts the physical evidence.
Precisely. Or the results from study A contradict the findings from study B. You're flagging this clash as something important that needs to be addressed, investigated.
And isn't that kind of contradiction vital for progress? Especially in science.
Absolutely. When something contradicts expectations, it forces scientists or analysts or anyone doing rigorous thinking to stop and reevaluate. Why is this happening? Is our theory wrong? Is the data flawed?
And that reevaluation, that process of working through the evidence and contradictions,
Yeah.
that leads to the final step, right? The conclusion.
Yes, that final cognitive leap, the drawing of a conclusion based on all the evidence and reasoning, that's captured beautifully by the verb
Deduce.
deduce, to infer.
To infer, yes, but specifically through logical reasoning from known facts or premises. It implies following a sequence.
Yeah.
You assess the situation, you weigh the evidence, maybe some affirms, some bolsters, some contradicts, you resolve the conflicts, and then you deduce the most logical outcome or explanation. So it captures that whole journey of academic thinking. You start with data, you analyze, and finally you say, okay, based on all of this, we can deduce that the market is likely to shift.
Exactly. It's the authoritative statement of inference arrived at through reason.
Okay, moving away from abstract arguments for a second. Precision is just as vital when describing concrete things, especially scale and impact. And the choice between devastate and diminish seems incredibly powerful rhetorically.
Oh, it's huge. The difference in the severity they convey is enormous. Devastate, that signals massive, ruinous, catastrophic impact. Wrecking, demolishing, total destruction.
Like the earthquake devastated the city, it's overwhelming, absolute.
Completely. Whereas diminish, Well, it means to reduce, lessen, decrease. It's often more gradual, maybe more controlled or less turtle.
Like regular exercise can diminish feelings of stress.
Exactly. The stress lessens, it's reduced, but it's probably not wiped out entirely, not devastated.
I remember hearing about an editor changing just one word in a report about a factory closure in a small town. The first draft apparently said the job losses would diminish the local economy.
Yes, I know that story. And the editor, quite rightly, understood that for this particular small town, totally reliant on that one factory, diminish, was far too weak.
It wasn't just a reduction.
No, it was an economic catastrophe for them. So the editor changed that single word to devastate.
And instantly, the report's tone and implied severity shifted dramatically.
It did. It went from simply stating a fact, the economy got smaller, to conveying the true human and economic crisis. The economy was wrecked. That choice demands a much stronger response from anyone reading it, especially policymakers.
Wow, one word. That really shows the power we're talking about.
It really does. And that kind of precision, choosing the right word, is also crucial when we talk about how something is shown or represented. For that, we often use the verb depict.
Depict, to portray.
To portray, illustrate, represent, yes. It sets the scene, defines the scope of what's being shown. It tells you what the artist or the writer, or maybe even a data set, is trying to capture or illustrate.
So, the novel depicts the struggles of immigrant families in the early 20th century.
Exactly. It's painting a picture, whether that picture is historical, fictional, or even statistical. This chart depicts the change in population density. It frames the representation.
And sometimes what's being depicted is deliberately, well, weird. It moves away from what we expect.
Which is often when we reach for the word bizarre.
Bizarre, meaning odd, peculiar, strange.
Yes, all of those. Bizarre signals strangeness, oddness, but often implies it's strikingly unusual, perhaps even deliberately so. It marks a significant departure from norms or conventions. Sometimes it's used just to mean very weird, but often it implies the strangeness is noteworthy, maybe even intentional.
So if a scientific result is just unexpected, we might call it surprising or anomalous. But if it's so wildly out there that it challenges fundamental laws or seems impossible,
Then you might start to call it bizarre. Or think of art. The artist's latest work was bizarre, but strangely compelling. The oddity, the deviation from the norm, is the point. It's meant to grab your attention, make you think.
so bizarre isn't just saying it's weird, it's highlighting the strangeness as significant, something that maybe forces you to engage or question things.
Exactly. In a way, calling something bizarre can be a kind of cognitive accelerator itself. It pushes the audience to grapple with the strangeness, not just dismiss it.
That's a neat transition, because that leads us right into our last set of words, these cognitive accelerators that really define peak performance, especially when using this advanced language.
Right. If you're operating at the C2 level, navigating these complex ideas and arguments, you need high mental agility.
Agility, like physical agility, but for the mind.
Precisely. Mental agility is about quickness, flexibility, nimbleness of thought. It's crucial in any high-pressure professional or academic setting.
Give me an example.
Okay, imagine you're in a tough negotiation. The other side suddenly introduces a completely unexpected condition or piece of information.
There's a curveball.
Exactly. Your mental agility is how quickly you can process that new information, assess its implications, and formulate an effective response or counterproposal on the spot.
Or maybe in an exam context, you're halfway through writing a timed essay and you suddenly realize there's a major flaw in your main argument.
Yes. Your agility determines if you can quickly pivot, adjust your thesis, restructure your points, and still finish effectively within the time limit, rather than just freezing or crashing.
So speed and flexibility of thought. And alongside that agility, you often need conciseness, right? Especially in professional communication.
Absolutely essential. Which brings us to brevity.
Brevity, crispness, terseness.
Yes. Brevity is about expressing a lot in few words. In advanced communication, think executive summaries, policy briefs, high-scoring academic essays. Brevity is genuinely power. You need to maximize the meaning while minimizing the word count.
It's about efficiency of expression. And using these C2 words helps achieve that, doesn't it? Using devastate instead of writing, it caused huge and widespread destruction that ruined everything.
Exactly. That single word achieves brevity while maintaining impact. Mastering this vocabulary is mastering brevity.
And if you master brevity and you have agility, your communication is hopefully never deficient.
Hopefully not. Which leads us perfectly to our final pair. Deficient versus adequate.
Okay. Deficient sounds negative, lacking something.
Yes, deficient means insufficient or inadequate. Something is missing that should be there, like a research paper that is deficient in supporting data.
It's lacking a crucial element. It falls short.
It falls short. It's not up to standard. If your communication is deficient in clarity or deficient in evidence, or perhaps deficient in the kind of agility or brevity we just discussed, it simply won't succeed at the highest levels.
So the goal then is to be adequate. Sounds a bit underwhelming, maybe.
It can sound that way, but in this context, think of adequate as meeting the required standard. It means enough, sufficient, satisfactory for the purpose. It means having the adequate tools like this C2 vocabulary to operate effectively and with authority in demanding situations.
So adequate here isn't faint praise. It means you have what's needed. You're properly equipped.
Exactly. You have the adequate linguistic resources to perform at that high level.
Wow. We've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
From the absolute finality of abolish to that forward-looking worry of apprehensive,
Right.
the strategic shoring up with bolster, the vital internal structure of cohesion.
Yep.
Mastering this whole toolkit, it really does feel like it would instantly lift your ability to handle complex conversations. You'd move beyond feeling, well, deficient in how you express yourself.
You immediately feel better equipped, more confident.
It really is like a linguistic upgrade. And, zooming out one last time, thinking about the weight these words carry, it's fascinating that English derives so many of them, right? It gets them, extracts them, acquires them from really deep historical roots.
It does. Primarily Latin and Greek for many of these more formal analytical terms.
So when you learn and use a word like affirm or deduce,
You're not just learning an English word in isolation. You're tapping into literally centuries, sometimes millennia, of layered meaning, of intellectual tradition, of how thinkers before us structured their arguments. It connects you to a long history of thought.
that's a powerful thought. Accessing a history of refined thinking just by choosing the right word.
It is, and we mentioned earlier how potential, intellectual potential, creative potential, how it blooms or blossoms or thrives or flourishes when people feel genuinely equipped.
Right, this vocabulary is like the fertile soil for that flourishing.
Yeah.
It gives you the framework, the tools to build more sophisticated, more precise thoughts in the first place.
Absolutely. When the language you have access to actually matches the complexity of the ideas you're wrestling with, your ability to create, to connect, to persuade, it just fundamentally changes.
Which I guess brings us to the final thought, the provocation for you, the listener, to maybe mull over. What is that precise link between mastering the language, having these tools, and the flourishing of genuinely new ideas?
That's the big question, isn't it? What truly original thoughts, what novel insights, what breakthroughs, political, scientific, artistic, might actually bloom?
When your own mental agility is amplified, when it's maximized, because you have these incredibly precise, authoritative C2 tools just ready at your disposal.
That's the frontier you unlock. That's the potential, something to ponder as you start integrating these powerful words into your own thinking and communication this week.